Hey everyone, it's Joe Waxman, the mediocre astrologer. Meh, he's okay. Guys, today I want to talk about the secrets of the 12th house and what it means for you to understand your 12th house. Everyone has a unique 12th house, and let's start looking at it. I'm going to use my own chart as a model, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share buttons, and book a reading with me. Go to my website, macroastrology.com, or my email, macrogolmachine@yahoo.com. All right, so clearly I have Pluto in the 12th, right? But let's look at what the 12th house is first. The 12th house is our subconscious, right? And tied into the 12th is the 8th house, which is other people's subconscious. Okay. Now you may never have heard it put that way, but that's one of the things I'm good at, is reinventing the wheel or reinventing astrology, right? I'm going to put it in my terms, in my own understanding, make it my own. This is other people's psychology, and it's under other people's subconscious, which is other people's psychology. Same thing. This is our own psychology. This is other people's psychology. This is why the 8th house is so powerful, right? If you can understand other people's psychology, then you can control them and be like a fantastic narcissist, right? Gaslight people, do whatever you want, manipulate them, control them, take advantage of them, or you can use that to help lift them up, which is what I try to do. If you understand somebody's psychology better than they understand it, you can elevate them and show them, how they can better themselves and whatnot. But this is our personal psychology, right? So if you have planets in the 12th house, then you are very good at understanding yourself. Potentially, at least you should. You really should try, because if you don't, it's going to cause a mess in your life. But you definitely should pay attention to your own psychology, especially if there are planets in your in your 12th house, or the 12th lord is busy doing with lots of stuff, right? It's conjunct other personal planets or has heavy aspects to it. Mine is obviously in the 8th house, conjunct the sun. So it's tying in my subconscious with other people's subconscious, my psychology with other people's psychology. And Pluto is the planet of psychology. Libra is the planet of the sign of others. Venus is also rules Libra. The trine here is very nice. It's off by 3 degrees, but still quite strong. Venus is dignifying my Pluto. Pluto for astrology or psychology. Excellent, right? Trining my sun. It's a little bit hidden, right? Still, we have planets in the 8th and 12th house and 4th house, all the water houses, they become hidden, but excellent for deep diving, discovering secrets, discovering all kinds of things: psychology, astrology, the occult, hidden things, deep underground things, being a detective, right? Sir Arthur Conan Doyle had Gemini in the 12th, and I think Mercury, and maybe some of the, I can't remember his full chart, but I just remember it was like, clearly that's where the detective work was coming from. The combination of air and water signs, the air sign in the water houses, where you can use the intellect to dive deep and discover all the hidden secrets. That's why Sir Arthur Conan Doyle could think like Sherlock Holmes. He's a detective, right? And so similarly, I have this kind of detective ability. I included POF here in Aquarius in the 4th, which trines my Pluto. And what's interesting about that is that I did learn astrology from my father. I did learn it from a very young age. I did learn archetypal studies from a very young age, before the age of 10. So I've been doing this my whole life. And so this definitely makes sense. Aquarius relates to that high level abstract thinking, right? Astrology, archetypes, just total, it's very abstract, Aquarius, right? So my fortune can be found from my roots. It's very accurate, very exact, and it's trine this Pluto, trine my Venus and Sun in the 8th. Give me a grand air trine as far as my ability to penetrate the depths of psychology and astrology and all that stuff. But if you have Pluto in the 12th, and obviously I'm trying to generalize this for everyone, but and this is not an easy task to go through, but look at your own chart. Look at what planets are there. Let's just take Pluto, for example. If you have Pluto, you definitely have to pay attention to your own inner psychology, because if you ignore Pluto, what's it going to do? It's going to be destructive. right? It's going to be absolutely destructive. If you are a victim mindset, blaming everyone, it's, very negative, Debbie Downer. Everything is everyone else's fault. You never take ownership. You never take responsibility. You never take the effort to instill your own will upon your mind. Rather, you're passive and let your mind run you. And just for an example, you're going for a walk, and then something like comes up in your mind, and you're like, oh my God, this person, they did this awful thing to me. Damn it. I hate them. They're such a bad person. How could they do that to me? Like, this is very common. This has been, I think it happens to me more powerfully than it does other because of this Pluto in the 12th. Like, I know how much my mind can bother me, right? But and probably also the Scorpio influence as well is very intense, right? But I think this happens to everyone, right? But if you allow that, that's passive. And the analogy of what that is like, you're not taking out the trash in your house, and that trash is getting all moldy and gross, and there are rats and roaches in there and flies, and it stinks, right? And you're like, something stinks, and you're like, must be me. I guess I stink, right? And then like you go and shower and you bathe and wash and change your clothes and everything. You're like, I still stink. That's the same thing that's happening with your subconscious mind. You're being lazy, you're being weak, you're being passive. You're not cleaning out your mind, and the stink, the stench, the smell is coming up, and it's taking over. It's hijacking your mind and your emotions, right? And it's saying all this negative stuff, and you're like, this is just me. I'm thinking. You're not thinking. That's not thinking. That's being thought up. That's being thought by your subconscious, right? Your subconscious is emanating this negative smell because you haven't cleaned your mind, and you're letting it. And if you have powerful planets in the 12th, or the 12th Lord is conjunct something significant, then that's even more, it's going to be even stronger. It's going to be even more powerful, that stink that comes up in your mind. It's not you. You have to realize this. This becomes very apparent if you study spirituality, if you meditate a lot, if you study Zen or Advaita Vedanta. They talk about this a lot. Like, most of our thoughts, they're not even our thoughts. They're just emanations from the body, from the past, right? From we keep our trauma in our body. We keep old emotions, negative emotions. If we don't clean that out, it emanates into our mind, hijacks our thoughts and our emotions, right? Emotions, by the way, are not separate from our thoughts. Emotions are derivatives of thoughts. And here's a simple thought experiment for you just to validate that. Imagine you're seeing a snake, a poisonous snake, like a black mamba or a king cobra, right? And it's poised and it's like ready to strike, and you're like, and you experience all this fear, right? Now, and then you look closer and you're like, oh my God, whoa, what? That's not a snake. That's a rope. Oh my God, I'm so relieved. Oh my gosh. Oh, what a fool I am. But all the fear went away because the thought changed, right? So emotions, 99.9999% of emotions are thought derivatives. So it starts in the mind. It's all the thought. And if you are letting your unclean mind, your unclean subconscious bubble up and stink up your mind and hijack your mind, that's not you, right? That's not you. That's being passive. That's being lazy. You're not taking control. You can take control, and this is called positive thinking, I guess you could say. I don't like that. I mean, I differentiate that because it's not like, you have to be authentic, right? It's not about saying stuff that's not true and hoping it'll just rub off like, I'm awesome, I'm great, and all this. And this ties back into the former thing about gratitude, and right. So I don't want to go too far off into that. I already talked about that. This is simply about, hold on one second. I have to pause it. I'm sorry. Sorry about that. I just had to pause it for 1 second. So this is about being proactive, right? If you're just passive in your life is going to happen around you, to you, and you're going to be a victim. You're going to be in a very sorry place. Nothing's going to fall into your lap. You have to go out there. You have to do stuff. As long as we have an ego, we have to make an effort. And so this is about being proactive and making an effort. If you're letting your mind run you, that's your subconscious, right? You're not choosing that. You're not consciously choosing. Conscious choosing, it comes from the first house, right? So if you're being passive and you're just being like allowing your subconscious mind and all your conditioning and all your trauma and all the wounds in your past and all the stories to run you, you're being very, very passive, weak, and you're not going to have a good outcome. You have to be proactive. You have to push back against those passive negativities. So if you see your mind being hijacked, your mind and your emotions being hijacked by negativity, know that that's coming from your subconscious. And then you can, if you study your astrology chart, you can understand the influences there. You know, I have Pluto in Libra retrograde. You know, Pluto in Libra is kind of obsessed about relationships. There's a lot more to it than that, but that's one like a very simplistic way of looking at it. Pluto in Libra is all about relationships. You know, retrograde makes it even more challenging, but more resilient at the same time. You know, if a planet is retrograde in your 12th, especially one of the outer planets, you're not going to be as susceptible to outer conditioning. Like I'm completely immune. You know, like the doctor can just be like blah 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 blah, and I'm just like, you know, this kind of stuff doesn't work on me. I don't mean doctor, like, you know, like in the news or whatever. Like I'm incredibly resilient or resistant to propaganda and all sorts of stuff. That's also Uranus retrograde, but retrogrades give you that resistance. So like it's a lot more questioning, questioning yourself, questioning others. Difficult part about that is that it's a lot harder to change your subconscious because it's going to resist, right? If you have this RX, you could just say resistant, right? Resistant to influence, resistant to change. You know, it doesn't mean I'm completely resistant to everything, but you know, it definitely adds a lot of resistance. But any case, you want to know what's in your subconscious so that you can work with it. So if for me, it's very powerful. When my mind gets hijacked by my subconscious, it's intense, right? I'm like seething and growling and, you know, like angry on the inside because there's so much, you know, negativity in it's just my personality. I have to consciously work with that. I have to consciously push against it. And my analogy again is like pushing against weights, right? It takes that kind of effort to correct your mind. And the mindset, every successful person does this. If you go online and there's so many different coaches and like, you know, mindset gurus and all that, and they're all good, right? Like I listen to them, I get it, like, yes, right? They don't understand most of them don't understand astrology, which is like, okay, we're not all the same. You know, there are people who have to work with different things. You can't just, but it's still good, right? But point I'm trying to get is they're all mastering their mind. They're not letting, they learned early on because they went through some very hard difficulties that taught them lessons, pretty much all of them, that they have to be master of their mind. They can't let their mind take over them. And by mind, if your mind's taking over, that's your subconscious mind. That's why the 12th house is so important, right? We don't often realize this, and people are always like, they obfuscate the 12th house because they don't really understand it. They're like, the 12th house is the most mysterious. It's the most secretive. It's the most misunderstood. It's the most nebulous. It's the hardest to understand. And I think anything we say about it is not really true. Well, that's just because you don't know what you're talking about, and you just don't have, you haven't figured it out yet. It's our subconscious mind, right? It's not the collective subconscious. I mean, that's a Jung thing. It's not, we don't experience everything that everyone else has experienced. You know, my mind is not tied. There is a layer of spirituality that's connected, you know, like I can, you know, have psychic connections and whatnot. But generally speaking, my subconscious is my subconscious. It's not really everyone else's subconscious. It's not collective. Just because Jung said something doesn't mean it's true, right? And that's where my resistance come in. I'm here to tell you, like, we can be a little bit more, we don't have to, oh, they wrote a book, it's the truth, right? Fuck off. Like, you can write a book, you can be in history, everyone can shout your name and you can still be wrong, right? Like, that doesn't make you right just because everyone's like, well, Jung, like, you know, Freud, penis envy. Oh, yes, we all have penis envy. We all, you know, like, ridiculous. No, I don't have Oedipus complex or whatever, right? You know, these are all attempts to explain things, but it doesn't make them right. So anyway, it's the most literal translation of the 12th house is subconscious. It's not the house of undoing. It's the house of undoing if you don't do anything about your 12th house. It's going to sabotage you because it's subconscious. So yeah. And there's not enemies here. It's not hidden enemies. That's all nonsense. I mean, you're your own worst enemy, but this is not a house of others. I mean, unless you have a sign that relates to others, but it's a personal house. It's about your own subconscious, your own psychology. And yes, because of that, because of the obfuscation, if you're your own worst enemy, then you're also going to have other worst enemies too, right? Stuff like that. But in any case, study your subconscious, study its Lord. If you don't have any planets here and your Lord's not doing much, maybe you have a good mind. Maybe you're just like naturally, it doesn't affect you that much. Maybe you're not hijacked by your subconscious that much. Or if you are, it's very easy to push back against. And all you have to do is just smile and remember, whatever, your boyfriend, girlfriend, your job, whatever. I don't know, right? Like, some people it's probably not that big of a deal. But for some of us, it's a huge deal. And for me, it's a huge deal. Like I like my mind, like literally can like, take me over in such a bad way that I have to be conscious of it. Like I can't even tell you like how much torture my mind would give me in the past when I didn't understand that it wasn't me. It was just the stink of the smell of the residue inside me, of the conditioning, the trauma that I hadn't cleaned up. Right. And you just have to clean it up. You have to take out the trash. You don't, that's really what it comes down to. So pay attention to your 12th house. And I obviously can't go through every combination here, of planets in the 12th or their Lord. But like you can tell like where your mind is going. Mine's very straightforward. It's the 12th is going into the 8th with my sun. Sun is worldliness. 8th house is, here I'm a, astrological detective, basically, right? For the world. And it's coming out here in videos and talking to you guys and giving readings, and it's very simple. All right, almost everything points to that. Right? It's all quite straight. But like for other people, it can be more complex. Not everyone has a straightforward chart or path. It can be meandering. It could be here one time and there another time, and it is for me too. But mine is pretty straightforward. I just, had to arrive at a healthy place in order to embody it. Yeah. So study your 12th house and your 12th Lord to know where how your subconscious mind is working and what it needs to be satisfied, right? For me, relationships are going to be very important to calm my subconscious mind to satisfy it. And although like there's a bit of conundrum, you really have to understand the whole chart. Like for me, like South Node is in the 7th with Jupiter and Mercury and Chiron. So in my first half of life, I had a lot of friends, girlfriends, people, social activity. Now North Node, Scorpio, Uranus in the 1st, Uranus retrograde. This is very cold, hard, and lonely, right? There's nothing personable about this. There's Uranus is not a personal planet. Scorpio, although deals with relationships and intimacy, it's in the 1st house, right? So my intimacy comes through astrology and doing readings with people, right? Or like you guys listening. That's not really, but it's astrology fulfills that, right? And then so like my obsession about relationships has to focus on this kind of thing, what I'm doing right now, like sharing astrological knowledge with you guys or giving readings. That's where it has to come from, because it's not coming from relationships. I'm sharing a bit about myself. I don't really have any close relationships right now, and that's okay. I'm not saying that to complain. It's just the reality. But it's wonderful because it gives me so much motivation to develop myself, develop my astrology, and really think about these things and find out who I am. That's what one of the things North Node in the 1st really has to learn. And life will enable that. North Node in the 1st has to really understand themselves. That's about self-mastery. So yeah, it's, there's a bit of conflict here, but it just makes it more focused into one area. So, and that, Venus conjunct the sun. By the way, if you have Venus conjunct the sun, you might have very special affection for your father, which I did. People don't understand that. It's probably my mistake. It really is. But anyway, I'm just saying that in reference because I got a lot of flack about my video, and I probably could have done a lot better job. But I definitely did have a major love and affection for my father. Not just love, like I needed to be near him, and I always tried to be. and that was a source of another great source of pain because he wasn't always there for me. But that's 8th house, right? And if your Venus is in your 8th house, you're going to have a lot of pain because that's where you love. That's where Moon, Venus, even Sun, these are all related to our heart, right? Our heart connection. But it's also my 12th Lord. And 12th and the 8th is not bad because they're so malefic house. They're not really malefic, right? They're not really malefic. They just showed more challenging relationships, the inconjuncts, and then the semi-sextiles, 12th and 2nd. 12th and 2nd, but the 12th is more significant than here in any case than the 2nd for this purpose, the 12th and the 8th, and the 4th for your roots, right? You can get a lot of like psychological baggage, conditioning, wounds from the 4th house as well, right? So you also want to check that, see what's there, because these are the water houses, and they're hidden, they're secretive, and that's why we have to dig deep to really penetrate and understand them. So I hope I give you just a little bit of a little nugget to chew on, to look at your own chart and be like, okay, what's in my 12th house? What's going on there? What's my 12th Lord doing? And what do I need to do to satisfy my subconscious mind? Because these are subconscious urges. You better satisfy it, because this is a huge point for your well-being, right? Mine's has to do with the water houses, psychology, astrology, and being a sort of astrological detective and relating to psychology. And there's different kinds of astrologers, by the way. I'm very much a psychological astrologer, meaning that I care about the psychology of other people, and that's what the 8th house is about, right? But there's academic astrologers. There's astrologers who don't give a shit about like other people's personality. They're just like, okay, what are the stars doing now? What, mundane astrology or astrological patterns, or I don't know. People are into different things. So there's many different kinds of astrology, just as a tangent. I'm very much a psychological astrologer. I care about like other people interpreting people's charts much more than mundane, although I dabble in mundane astrology and all the other astrologies and academic astrology and all the different kinds, but I'm mostly a psychological astrologer. So anyway, that's very evident, and that's what will satisfy my subconscious mind, dealing with people and their my own psychology and other people's psychology, right? My own subconscious, other people's subconscious, other people's whole charts, really, right? Okay, so that's it for now. Just a little something to chew on. Oh, sorry. All right. I will see you guys again soon. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, share, book a reading with me. Nobody's turned away for lack of funds. Just let me know your situation. However, I did raise my prices to $100. So if you can't afford that, I expect you to pay full price. If not, let me know. And I will see you again soon. Mediocre astrologer signing off. Meh, he's okay. All right, thanks. Bye.